Next, we have a quick grab session. The session is actually divided into two. We have a small keynote followed by a panel discussion. For the keynote, let me call upon on stage Manish Sharma. Manish? Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Manish is the Senior Managing Director for Accenture Operations Global Delivery and Solution Development and leads global sales for Accenture Operations BPO. In this role, Manish leads more than 67,000 professionals in more than 40 delivery centers across 5 continents. He also serves as a member of Accenture's Global Leadership Council. Manish, the stage is all yours.
Can you hear me? Is it clear? Okay. So I think, good lunch. So not sure how many people are awake. And, hopefully I'll make some provocative statements so that at least I can get people who are having a good siesta back up, right? And with that, I do want to kind of, this is my first slide, right? But I do want to talk about whatever, I know we belong to this industry, right? BPO, and we kind of re-christianed it as BPM and some of the other stuff. What I do want to kind of signal here is that the old legacy BPO is dead. It is quite clear that whatever we have been doing this for, I think multiple decades, it has given huge, generated a lot of jobs, generated huge amount of revenues. I think this particular facet is disappearing. This facet is disappearing, and it's not a story of doom and gloom, but I think what is emerging is what I call as a service. And that is where, I think we want to kind of talk through in the next 10 minutes on this. Because this industry, we had a lot of call centers, we had a lot of, people buying on FTEs, number of people employed, I was announced as how many people I own and everything else. I think that whole aspect is disappearing. That industry probably, I think and this will be much faster than what we all think. I think this will disappear, I think probably in a couple of years' time, rather than decades. So I think, we should just be prepared from an industry perspective of how we want to take advantage of this change. Recently, there was a survey done, right? Accenture sponsored it, and then we had HFS. I think, they actually had published the report out of that, and I can see Phil and Charles out there in the end. In the survey that was conducted, right, every single person who was asked the question, they said digital technology is disrupting us. They all agreed to that, and it is kind of now an established fact that this is changing the way we are kind of running this industry. But the second number is very important. Only 1 in 5 have been able to extract any value out of this. Now that is where the huge challenge and I think a huge opportunity exists for everyone, right? 100% agree, but only 1 in 5 are able to kind of take the value out of these digital changes. When we talk about as a service, right, we have got multiple things, and I kind of hear people saying, oh, this is as a service, this is not as a service, and some of the other stuff, right? But the best example is what is happening at your homes with Netflix, how people are not even buying television. They are watching streaming stuff on the laptops. And I think that is kind of how this BPM industry or the BPO industry will look like. It is going to be on demand. It is going to be very agile. It is going to be plug and play. It will be starting small and scaling really fast. But that is kind of the industry which is there. A lot of you are practitioners here, right? We talk about transition, and we say, oh, it will take 2 months, 3 months to kind of after you sign the contract. But those days are gone, right? And I think what we are seeing now is the emergence of really plugging in, playing in, really, and we're not talking about weeks, we're talking about hours, minutes. I think that's kind of the change that you're going to see right now. In terms of the value for the client, I'm not going to kind of talk through the whole value chain here, but I'll talk through some of the key facets out here, right? If you look at this, what you are talking about is agile, talking about plug and play, you're talking about start small and scale fast, and very closely linked to the business outcomes. There is, I think, no BPO provider who can exist in the coming years if what they're doing, if they're getting charging on the basis of FTEs, charging of number of people that are there, I think those days will be gone, and probably you will see a lot of shift towards charging towards business outcomes. We do a lot of work where now we are getting paid on actual business outcomes, which is if you're working for a car industry, number of cars sold. If you're working, for a supply chain company, you're trying to figure out how did you manage the inventory and getting paid on that. But I think that is kind of the change that you will see in the coming years. When we talk about as a service, there are a lot of people who say that, I am in the as a service stuff and I am kind of working, in a new model. But what are the ingredients required for being in an as a service player? And what we are seeing on this particular chart are some of the ingredients, because if you do not have all the ingredients pulled together, there is no way that you can actually be as a service player. What you see on the top is a business process, right, which we all are extremely familiar with. Business processes, they have to be much more intelligent, they have to be linked to the business outcomes, they have to be leaded with analytics and automation. I think those are some of the key parts. You need to have apps and platforms. It's extremely critical to have those elements, right? Again, intelligent, which can automate, analyze, and kind of be the most effective engine for yourself. They have to be hosted on the cloud. I was just outside and I was kind of looking at one of the nice apps. You have to have the cloud out there if you want to scale fast. There is no way if you're not on the cloud, whether you can be extremely flexible and agile if you're not on the cloud. You need to have all those things secure, and you need to have intelligent infrastructure. And if you look at the previous panel discussion, we talked about, industry expertise, analytics. It has to be leaded with that. Otherwise, there is no as-a-service model, right? So you cannot have an as-a-service model which will not allow you to have the flexibility which a cloud provides. And that is why this chart kind of tells you in terms of what is the direction that we will take when we go for an as-a-service model. Business outcomes. A lot of discussion, even from what I saw, right? But right now, the clients are coming to you not for saying, take my F&A, take my HR, take my customer service. I think you will see more and more clients coming to you and asking whether, can you help solve my business problems? And I think that is where we will have to figure out what are the business problems. There are only two things that we can do, right? How can I enhance your profit? How can I reduce your cost? It's all about the revenue and the profits, right? And I think that is where we have to partner, the providers have to partner with the clients to give this kind of objectives, because this is what the real, I think success would look like. I think the providers will need to start asking the question, what does success look like for the client, rather than trying to go and pitch for an F&A or for an HR BPO or for some of the processes that we typically do. But business outcomes will become the central theme in the way we kind of run this business. The new pyramid of work, I think this is extremely critical. We in Accenture, we kind of did where we retransformed, reskilled 10,000 of our people, because we took out 10,000 jobs in transaction processing. We personally believe that anything that is measurable, which is repeatable, which is transactional in nature, human beings should not be doing it. Because I think human beings have been created to do something even much better value-added stuff, rather than doing something which is very, very transactional in nature. And that is why you are seeing the shift out here, right, where did those 10,000 people lose their jobs? No, we employed each one of them and we reskilled them and we kind of worked that. But that is the talent piece. We now have created 10,000, what we call as business advisors, who have the ability to go and really talk about clients inside. They have become industry experts, and they are kind of helping clients solve their business problems. So that's kind of the first one around talent. Without analytics, there is no as a service. So you saw the elements that I described earlier about cloud and infrastructure and everything else pulled in together. Analytics is again a key. Again, I was having a discussion during lunch. We can do all the robotics, right? Experts in that, right? I said, we are done right from simple screen scripting stuff to we are doing cognitive computing stuff and kind of removing, and getting people to kind of do something else. Unless you mix robotics with analytics for the client's business outcomes, there is no meaning to this. So when I put my first slide up and I said the BPO industry is kind of, the legacy BPO is kind of on its last few years, I think this industry will get redefined with this kind of a pyramid. You would have done automation, and we have got fantastic partners who are helping us with that. And we have got very talented people who are actually virtually doing it. We have created almost what we call as 2,500 mini bots, which are allowing us to do automation at scale. So it's not like 5 people, 10 people, or 100 people. We're talking about thousands, 10,000 people that we are kind of automating. But the new pyramid of work, if you really look at this particular thing, it's got the 3 elements. You will automate the transactional work. You will also replace human beings, even doing subjective through cognitive stuff. And human beings will take an elevated space of being supervisor of robots and providing industry insights, industry expertise, and analytics for the clients. And that becomes the second layer out there. So if you look at some of this pyramid that we are kind of talking about now, if you look at a few years back and even now and how it will look like in the future, you will see the transactional layer completely disappearing, in this whole thing. And I think that's kind of where we are positioning right now for us. I want to talk about a small example. It's, I think, a 1-minute video that we have got. But this kind of just talks about or shows, how we can do some work which could have been thought that it is human beings are kind of only supposed to do. Can we get somebody to play the video, please? Coming up.
The process of lease abstraction has historically been labor-intensive and time-consuming. The reviewers work with outdated communications channels and processes, such as hard copy documents, telephone-only customer contact, inefficient document reviews, and error-prone manual data entry. The new solution automates the entire process end-to-end, from data ingestion via digital conversion to lease term review and extraction via cognitive computing through natural language, and finally, processing via robotic process automation. And the final output is presented to the client system. Accenture's cognitive engine uses natural language processing to analyze the lease content and extract relevant information based on client specifications. Machine learning helps the tool continuously improve straight-through processing and quality over time. With the implementation of the tool, we have seen productivity improvement in the range of 30 to 40% at analysis or abstract level for leases, and an equal reduction in resource utilization. Cognitive computing, paired with automation and digital workflow management, gets the right work done at the right time, with the highest level of accuracy, using the right technology. And we are breaking the link between the standard FTE models of the past to drive more commercial value for our clients.
And I think, one of the key things which is mentioned out there is typically you can say, I've got 100 people, so I know what is my revenue and everything else. And the direction that this industry is taking, there would be, you have to break the linkage and cannot correlate, every single FTE work to what your revenue is. And that is why that pyramid around talent, whether it is automation, whether it is analytics, you don't need one single element. You need all the three elements to ensure that you are able to deliver the business outcomes for a client perspective. So I think want to just spend a few minutes on the design thinking bit, right? I think there were some discussions earlier around design thinking. What I personally believe that I think there is always this elements of design thinking that have been there, and especially with our consulting heritage, we always had that while we were practicing this work. But I think what it does tell you, and I think why it is also linked very closely with as a service and a business outcome is, the key words in design thinking are, how do you collaborate with the client? How do you ensure that you know what is the definition of success for the client, and how are you tailoring your solution for the client? Client centricity and the client's business problems are the key, rather than providers going and saying, I have to sell HR BPO or a F&A BPO or a customer service BPO or some of the other stuff. But I think this close linkage and client centricity in terms of solving their business problems is probably one of the key things around the design thinking. What's next? I think it will be very interesting, right? It will be a very interesting space to kind of see how this as a service go. Again, the study which was done, right? 7 out of 10, when we talk to the clients, they said as a service is away, they believe it will happen 5 years later. That will be an interesting journey. That will be a very interesting journey, because I think here the winners would be the clients who can actually adopt this, because it will be very flexible, it will be very quick, it will cut the lead times, and also the successful providers would be the one who can adapt to this very, very fast. With that, thank you. And we'll invite the panel. Thank you.